Walden was thrilling. I was fully gripped from the trailer. I wonder if you could share what inspired the story.
Uh, I'd always been interested in a stenographer's life. I thought these people, nobody gives a damn about them in a courtroom. They sit there, they take down everything, they hear terrible things happen, and they take it all home. And so I just wondered, what's it like? And then I watched the Johnny Depp trial, and the lady, the stenographer there, everybody's watching Johnny or Amber, but I was watching the stenographer. And I just wondered, does she go home and take care of her cats or take care of her husband? Or does she put on a costume and jump off a building and save people in a back alley? And then the name Walden came to me, and I thought, what if a stenographer lived a double life? And that was it.
I like that. Speaking of the names, I'm always interested, especially with writing. Like, how do you come up with the name? Walden is like, I don't know. It really like, sometimes it's like movie names don't fit, but Walden fit perfectly. And it's not that Walden is necessarily a name I associate with, a character like this. But yeah, how'd you come up with the names for all the characters?
Well, for me, Walden, the character in my head was like a Pillsbury Doughman with a bow tie. So he was kind of like cute and cuddly. And if you prodded his tummy, he would chuckle or laugh. And I thought that's such a Walden kind of character. And then Dean was from James Dean because I'm a James Dean fan, and I thought it's such a cool name, Walden Dean, to put those two names together, and that's kind of how it happened.
Speaking more about Walden, there's something about the cadence of him that, like, I don't know if that was something you came up with, that was something that was planned or it was organic from like the performance when it came out, but the cadence of Walden, Emile Hirsch, really drew me in. Was that something that you designed, or is that something that you kind of happened and you and then just went with it?
It was kind of partly on the page and partly in discussions. And I think at one point, one of the discussions we had is I thought, can you imagine if Jack Nicholson was a nerd and he was living in a small town in Georgia and he wore a bow tie and he did your job? This is probably how he would sound. And Emile just nailed it right away. He just brought that lovely cadence to the character. And as soon as I heard them talk, I said, that's it. Don't lose it. That's it. So worked out pretty good, I think.
Jack Nicholson. Sorry. That's great.
Okay, that's okay. That gets a laugh. That's okay.
What made you decide to set it kind of a more rural town versus more urban town?
Those old movies from the 60s, like To Kill a Mockingbird and The Heat of the Night and all those Deep South movies where on the surface everything looks nice and sweet and happy and magnolia trees and all kinds of, blessed morning to everyone. And then what's the underbelly of that? I mean, to put it in a Gotham setting, whether it's New York or maybe, LA or something, I just thought that's too easy, I want to put it in a place where things like this just would not happen. And people like Walden would live, and I also felt that in these towns, the clock has stopped. I mean, when you watch this movie, you could be in the 50s or the 60s. It just has that vibe. So I think it worked pretty nicely that we set it in that town because once again, the small town vibe and the things that go on in it, especially for Walden, I think we would have lost him if we'd put him in New York. We would have lost him, and it becomes very Death Wish. It becomes very Charles Bronson, and I didn't want that.
It really sets him up to be the character that he is, and then it also kind of like it magnified his own personal problems going on.
Absolutely, yeah, because he's third generation stenographer. He's very proud of his job. He's very proud that he took up his father's mantle. He's very proud of the fact that in the small town that he works, he really does serve the law, and also he never asks for much out of life. He never looks for anything in life. He's quite happy to blend into the background, which suits perfectly for what he eventually becomes.
It really does. Yeah, because especially with like his initial introduction and stuff like that. I mean, if I didn't see the trailer, I would have guessed someone else completely.
Right, right. Well, there you have it. But Emile is he was born to play Walden, I think.
I know from a writing side, writing sometimes it can be cathartic to write evil, but on a performer side, and I'm imagining on director side, it takes a lot more like investment and like emotional preparation. I was wondering what was the process of getting everyone ready to react to the heinous acts in the film, and like what kind of preparation was there for Emile to like kind of turn that switch for Walden?
Well, it's a good question. I think that, I mean, the good thing is we had a pretty decent blueprint with the script to guide all of us. But I think that for Emile, there was justification in what he was doing, because it was almost like it was ordained. Keep in mind, he's a man of faith. He believes in God. He prays to God in the movie, and I think that he felt his calling is what it became as a result of the medical diagnosis that he got. And of course, for him, it was the natural progression is, okay, so I have this wrong with me. And so it makes perfect sense. I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to right the wrongs because no one else is doing it. So the idea was always to make it not like jump out at the screen, but to make it almost organic in the process. Because if you look at what he does before he commits the crime and then after he commits the crime, he's very much, a guy who butters his toast, and sits in his pajamas. It's very matter of fact. And I think that's what's so unnerving about the character, is that he is so capable of switching back to that lovable Pillsbury Dough steno guy, So I think it was just, let's keep it organic. Don't go frenzied. Don't become psycho. Don't become anything like that. Don't become Kathy Bates in Misery. Just do what you think naturally you're supposed to do. That's what makes them a little unnerving as well. If you're an audience and you're watching them, you're going to love them or hate them at the end, but you're going to think to yourself, wow, I mean, what kind of on-off switch does he have where he can go from that sweet, lovable guy to back to the sweet, lovable guy, and never really raise the tempo that much, even during whatever he does in the middle. It's just something he feels is justified. And therefore, it's very simple to go home and make some toast and a cup of tea,
Final question for you. What do you hope audience members take away after watching the film?
Number one, you want them to enjoy the movie. We hope that happens, because that would be fun if people, because we always make movies so that people can enjoy them. That's the idea. So I'd like them to have that, and then I'd like them to walk out of the theater and have their debates and their conversations about what was Walden really? Was Walden a good guy or a bad guy? Was he crazy? Was it his illness that made him that way? Is he going to continue that way? Has he found his vocation in life? So yeah, that's what I'd like the audience to walk away with, and the idea was never to make it too far-fetched, you know what I mean? It was always to make it work within the realms of reality, as heinous as some of the things can be. But the world that we live in, sadly, has reached that point where a lot of these things are kind of the norm. And so I think that should be the discussion after the movie is, number one, really enjoyed it. Number two, what do you think of Walden, and will he come back?
All right, Mick, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for everyone to see Walden.
Okay, well, I'm so glad you enjoyed it, and thanks for your time, man. That was great. A lot of fun. All right.